In the heart of Lagos, where the city never sleeps and dreams are bought with desperation, there lived a young woman named Chioma whose story would become a warning whispered in every beauty salon from Victoria Island to Surulere. But what happened to her was not just a medical mishap. No, what Chioma unleashed upon herself and her community was something far darker, something that had been sleeping in the shadows of Nigeria's obsession with perfection, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. This is her story, and I warn you, what you are about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about beauty and the terrible price some pay to achieve it. Chioma was 26 years old, a marketing associate at a telecommunications company in Lekki Phase 1, earning decent money, but never quite enough to satisfy the hunger that burned inside her. She was beautiful by any standard, with smooth dark skin that glowed like polished mahogany, bright eyes that sparkled with intelligence, and a smile that could light up the darkest room. But Chioma saw only her flaws. Every morning, she would stand before her mirror in her small apartment in Aja, turning sideways, examining her reflection with the critical eye of someone who had measured herself against impossible standards and found herself wanting. Her hips were narrow, her backside modest, and in a world where curves were currency, Chioma felt bankrupt. The obsession had started innocently enough. Instagram models with impossibly tiny waists and dramatically curved backsides filled her feed. Celebrities flaunted figures that defied physics, and everywhere she looked, men praised these exaggerated proportions. At office parties, Chioma noticed how heads turned when blessing from accounts walked by, her enhanced figure commanding attention like a magnet. At clubs, she watched from the sidelines as women with surgical enhancements danced in the center of every circle, worshipped like goddesses. Even her own boyfriend, Emeka, had made thoughtless comments about how he liked women with more shape, more presence, more everything that Chioma naturally lacked. But procedures at reputable hospitals in Lagos cost millions of naira, money that Chioma simply did not have. She had visited 3 consultations at proper medical facilities, and each time, the price had made her heart sink. 4 million naira. 5 million naira. 6 million naira. The numbers danced in her head like mocking spirits, reminding her that perfection was reserved for those who could afford it. She returned to her apartment each time feeling more desperate, more incomplete, more invisible. Her savings account held only 800,000 naira, money she had accumulated over 3 years of careful budgeting, skipping lunches, and avoiding the lifestyle her colleagues enjoyed. It was nowhere near enough. If you have ever felt invisible in a world that celebrates only the boldest and brightest, smash that subscribe button because this story is about to take a turn that will leave you breathless. One evening, as Chioma scrolled through her phone with tears streaming down her face after another disappointing consultation, a message appeared in her direct messages from an account called Beauty Transformation NG. The account had no profile picture, only a cryptic bio that read, "Real results. Affordable prices. Discretion guaranteed." The message was simple but targeted, as if the sender knew exactly what Chioma was searching for in the darkness of her desperation. "I can help you get the body you desire for just 750,000 naira. Complete transformation. No hospital. No questions. Are you brave enough?" The message included before and after photos of women with dramatically enhanced figures, testimonials written in broken English, and a phone number. Chioma's rational mind screamed warnings, but her desperate heart whispered possibilities. She called the number the next morning during her lunch break, hands trembling as she pressed dial. A woman answered, her voice smooth as honey but cold as the harmattan wind. She introduced herself as Madam Shakira, a specialist who had trained abroad and returned to Nigeria to help women achieve their dreams affordably. She explained that she operated outside the traditional medical system because Nigerian hospitals charged exploitative prices for procedures that could be done more efficiently in private settings. She spoke with confidence about her methods, dropping medical terms that sounded impressive to Chioma's untrained ears. She promised results that would transform Chioma's life within weeks. When Chioma hesitated, mentioning her concerns about safety, Madam Shakira laughed. a sound that seemed to echo with something ancient and hungry. "My dear, I have done this procedure for over 200 women in Lagos alone. They all walk around now with the bodies of their dreams. Some are married to millionaires. Some have become influencers. All because they were brave enough to trust me. Are you brave, Chioma? Or will you remain invisible forever?" The question struck Chioma like a physical blow because it voiced her deepest fear. To remain invisible. To remain overlooked. To remain insufficient in a world that celebrated excess. She agreed to meet Madame Shakira the following Saturday at an address in Ikorodu, a location far from the gleaming towers of Lagos Island, deep in the sprawling neighborhoods where questions were rarely asked and secrets easily kept. She was instructed to bring her payment in cash, wear loose clothing, and tell no one where she was going. The secrecy should have alarmed her, but Chioma convinced herself it was normal, that wealthy women probably used such services all the time and simply never spoke about it. She told her roommate she was visiting a cousin. She told Emeka she had a wedding to attend. She told her mother she would be busy with work projects. Each lie came easier than the last, as if she were already transforming into someone new, someone capable of keeping dangerous secrets. Saturday arrived with oppressive heat, the kind that made Lagos shimmer like a mirage. Chioma took 3 buses to reach the address, traveling deeper into neighborhoods she had never visited, where buildings leaned against each other like tired old men and the streets smelled of burning trash and desperation. The address led her to a compound hidden behind high walls topped with broken bottles and razor wire. A small sign read Wellness Center, but the building looked more like an abandoned warehouse than any medical facility. Chioma's instincts screamed at her to turn back, but she had come too far, wanted this too badly, and had already transferred the money to Madame Shakira's account that morning. She knocked on the heavy metal gate, and it swung open immediately, as if she had been expected and watched. Inside, the compound was darker than the bright afternoon outside, shaded by large trees that seemed too big and too twisted for their surroundings. A young woman in a stained nurse's uniform led Chioma into a room that had been converted into something resembling an operating theater, though the equipment looked old and mismatched, gathered from various sources rather than purpose-bought. Madame Shakira was waiting, a tall woman with an ageless face and eyes that seemed to look through Chioma rather than at her. She wore a white coat that was too clean, too bright, as if it had never actually been used for medical work. She smiled, revealing teeth that were too perfect, too white, too numerous. "Welcome, my dear. Today, you become who you were always meant to be. Today, you stop being invisible. Are you ready to be seen? If this story is making your heart race, hit that like button and let me know in the comments if you would have gone through with this procedure." Chioma nodded, her voice lost somewhere in her throat. She was instructed to change behind a curtain into a thin hospital gown and lie face down on a table that was cold despite the afternoon heat. Madame Shakira moved around her with practiced efficiency, marking Chioma's lower back and buttocks with a purple marker, outlining areas that would be enhanced. The assistant brought in a tray of syringes, large syringes filled with a substance that looked thicker than any liquid Chioma had ever seen, almost solid, with a strange pearlescent quality that caught the dim light. "What is that?" Chioma asked, her first real question since arriving. Madame Shakira's smile widened. "This is a special formula developed through years of research. It contains elements that will not only enhance your shape, but will integrate with your own tissue, becoming part of you in ways that silicone never could. You will not just look different, Chioma. You will be different. You will be magnificent." The procedure began without any formal anesthesia, only a topical numbing cream that burned when applied. Madame Shakira worked quickly, too quickly for proper medical procedure, plunging the large syringes into Chioma's flesh again and again, injecting the mysterious substance in quantities that seemed excessive even to Chioma's untrained perception. The pain was extraordinary, beyond anything Chioma had imagined, waves of agony that made her scream into the pillow they had placed under her face. But Madame Shakira kept working, humming something that sounded like a song but felt like a chant, words in a language Chioma did not recognize. The assistant held Chioma down when she tried to move, strong hands that seemed impossibly powerful for such a small woman. Time lost meaning. Chioma drifted in and out of consciousness, seeing strange shadows moving on the walls, hearing voices that whispered in harmonies that human throats should not be able to produce. When it finally ended, Chioma could barely stand. Her lower body felt heavy, as if it belonged to someone else. Madame Shakira helped her to a mirror and Chioma gasped. Her transformation was dramatic, almost impossible. Her backside had swelled to enormous proportions, creating curves that were beyond exaggerated, beyond anything she had seen even on the most enhanced celebrities. It looked unreal, cartoonish, but in the dim light of that room, Chioma saw only the answer to her prayers. She was no longer invisible. She was impossible to ignore. Madame Shakira wrapped Chioma's new figure in compression garments and gave her a bottle of pills. Take these twice daily. Do not remove the garments for 2 weeks. Do not see any doctor. Do not tell anyone where you got this done. And most importantly, do not be alarmed by any unusual sensations. The integration process can be intense, but it is necessary. Your body is becoming what it was always meant to be. Chioma nodded, barely hearing the words, lost in the image of her new self. The journey home was agony. Every bump in the road sent shockwaves of pain through Chioma's body. She could barely sit, eventually standing in the crowded buses, enduring curious stares from other passengers. When she finally reached her apartment, her roommate Jennifer was out, and Chioma collapsed onto her bed, sweating despite the air conditioning, her body temperature fluctuating wildly. That night, the dreams began. Dark dreams filled with shadows that moved with purpose, whispering voices that spoke her name, and the sensation of something growing inside her, something that was not her but was becoming her. She woke repeatedly, drenched in sweat, her new proportions feeling heavier each time, as if they were filling with something denser than fat, something that pulsed with its own rhythm. By the third day, Chioma noticed the changes were continuing. Her backside was still swelling, growing larger than what Madame Shakira had created, expanding in ways that defied the compression garments. The skin there felt different, tougher, with a strange texture that reminded Chioma of reptile leather. Dark veins appeared beneath the surface, spreading like roots, pulsing visibly with each heartbeat. When Jennifer finally saw Chioma, she screamed. "What did you do?" "Chioma, what is that? That is not normal. We need to take you to a hospital now." But Chioma refused, remembering Madame Shakira's warnings, convincing herself this was part of the process, that her friend simply did not understand the transformation required for true beauty. But by the end of the first week, Chioma could no longer deny that something was terribly wrong. The substance Madame Shakira had injected was not integrating with her tissue. It was consuming it. Chioma's legs began to weaken, as if the weight of her enhanced backside was draining strength from the rest of her body. She could barely walk, each step requiring enormous effort. The skin over her enhanced areas began to change color, darkening to shades of purple and black, with patches that looked almost metallic. Strange lumps appeared beneath the surface, moving independently, as if something alive was swimming through the injected material. Worst of all was the hunger. Chioma found herself eating constantly, consuming amounts of food that should have been impossible for someone her size, yet never feeling satisfied. Her body was demanding fuel for whatever transformation was occurring within her. When she tried to call Madame Shakira, the number was disconnected. The beauty transformation NG account had vanished from Instagram. Chioma searched desperately for the address in Ikorodu, but could not remember exactly which streets she had taken, which turns she had made. It was as if the compound had never existed, or existed in a space that could only be found by those who were summoned. Jennifer insisted they go to the hospital, and Chioma finally agreed, terrified by what she saw in the mirror each morning. But what happened next, what the doctors discovered, what came crawling out when they tried to remove the foreign substance, that is a story so horrifying that I need you to subscribe right now, because part 2 is going to reveal the true nature of what Madame Shakira injected into Chioma and dozens of other women across Lagos. At the hospital, Dr. Okonkwo examined Chioma with growing horror. He had seen many botched procedures in his 20 years of practice, but nothing like this. The imaging scans showed that the injected substance had spread throughout Chioma's lower body, infiltrating her muscles, wrapping around her bones, even reaching toward her spine. But more disturbing was what the substance appeared to be doing. It was restructuring her tissue, converting human cells into something else, something the doctor's equipment could barely identify. He called in specialists, and soon Chioma's room was filled with doctors speaking in urgent whispers, making phone calls to colleagues in other countries, consulting medical databases that had no answers. They found other cases, dozens of them, all women who had sought cheap enhancement procedures, all showing similar symptoms, all traced back to various practitioners who seemed connected to the mysterious Madame Shakira. The head specialist, Professor Adeyemi, a woman who had studied medicine in London and returned to Nigeria to help her people, pulled Chioma aside and asked her a question that changed everything. Did this woman who did your procedure, did she say anything strange? Did she perform any rituals? Did she use any words that sounded like incantations? Chioma's blood ran cold as she remembered the humming, the chanting, the shadows on the walls. She described everything to Professor Adeyemi, who nodded with the grim expression of someone whose worst fears had been confirmed. This is not just medical malpractice, Chioma. This is juju. This is dark medicine. What was injected into you is not merely a substance. It is a vessel for something else, something that feeds on vanity and desperation. And we have no idea how to stop it. As night fell over the hospital, Chioma lay in her bed, feeling the thing inside her growing stronger, more aware, more hungry. Through her window, she could see Lagos stretching out in all directions, millions of lights marking millions of lives, and she wondered how many other women were lying in their beds at this very moment, feeling the same wrongness growing inside them, transformed by their desire for beauty into something monstrous. The thing inside her whispered now, not with words, but with feelings, promising her that the transformation was almost complete, that soon she would be perfect, that soon she would be seen by everyone, that soon she would be impossible to ignore. And in the deepest part of her soul, in the place where truth lives beyond denial, Chioma understood that she had not paid 750,000 naira for a medical procedure. She had paid it as a sacrifice to something ancient, something that had always existed in the shadows of human vanity, something that Madame Shakira served. And the price was not money. The price was herself. But what Chioma did not know, what the doctors could not tell her, what was about to be revealed in the coming days, would shake Lagos to its very foundations and expose a network of darkness that had been operating in plain sight for years. And the question that would haunt everyone who heard this story was simple but terrible. How many other women were already too far gone to be saved? Like and subscribe for part 2, where the full horror of Madame Shakira's operation is finally revealed, and Chioma must make an impossible choice between her humanity and the thing she is becoming.